Hey there, lovely soul. Thank you for taking the time to visit Noah Stories today. I hope you're feeling at peace amidst all the chaos of life, and if not, then let this story be a gentle comfort for your heart. How have you been lately? Feel free to share something with me in the comments. I always love hearing from you. Now find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's dive into today's story. This one might just touch your heart in a way you didn't expect. That autumn morning was peaceful. The sunlight streamed softly through the curtains of the seaside villa where Elena was making final preparations for the most important moment of her life. At 31, she, a successful interior designer, was about to step into a whole new chapter, marrying the man she believed was her true soulmate. The sound of distant waves blended with soft music playing in the room. Elena sat still in front of the mirror, her lashes fluttering slightly as the makeup artist added the final touches. Reflected back was a calm, graceful woman, her eyes shining not only with makeup, but with layers of emotion. She held her bouquet a little tighter, heart full of anticipation, not the kind that comes with fear, but the warm kind that comes with certainty. 15 years of love, a painful goodbye, countless lonely nights, and then a gentle, unexpected new beginning had brought her here. Elena hadn't forgotten the road that led to this day, but now she knew exactly where she stood and where she was going. In just a few more minutes, she would walk down the aisle, not just to marry a man, but to choose a new life. A life she had bravely dreamed of. As Elena's eyes quietly met her own reflection in the mirror, a flood of memories surged forward, fast, intense, and full of emotion. She didn't push them away. Instead, she let them come like a slow-motion film playing in her mind because they deserved to be remembered. Before stepping into a new life, Elena wanted to face the old one, no matter how much pain it held. She had once loved Daniel deeply. They met when she was just 16 in an evening English class. Daniel was a boy with soft curls, a lazy yet captivating walk, and a vintage film camera always slung over his shoulder. There was something in his eyes, part dreamer, part rebel, and entirely free. Elena, on the other hand, was orderly, loved colors, and carefully documented everything in a notebook. Maybe it was their contrast that drew her in. Their love started with after-class walks, blurry snapshots Daniel took in haste, and secret hand-holding in the school library. It was a first love, simple, innocent, but surprisingly enduring. When college came, they moved to different cities. Daniel went to an art institute for photography, Elena to university for interior design. Still, they stayed close. They wrote letters, sent postcards, celebrated anniversaries, and shared late-night phone calls just to hear each other breathe. Time passed. Elena's life gradually settled. She worked tirelessly, from internships to opening her own small design studio. Daniel, however, remained a free spirit, photographing landscapes, drifting from city to city, never quite planning for tomorrow, but whenever he returned, he visited her, with a smile and a strange new story from his latest trip. Elena loved his freedom but began to grow weary of it. Whenever she brought up the future, a house, a family, children, Daniel would deflect. "I'm not ready," or "Life is about enjoying the moment, isn't it?" And though it stung, she always nodded and waited. She waited for 15 years, waited for a serious proposal, waited for him to wake up one morning and say, "I want to settle down with you," but those words never came. Meanwhile, her friends built lives, got married, had children. Elena was the bridesmaid, the godmother, the friend who took photos at everyone else's happy moments, and each time she silently asked herself, "When will it be my turn?" She never told anyone about the nights she cried alone, when Daniel wouldn't message for days, or when she saw him traveling with friends and never once invited her. When family asked about marriage, she would smile, "Daniel is still chasing his art." But even she stopped believing that. That love wasn't bad, it had once been beautiful, but it had become long, exhausting, and one-sided. The turning point didn't come from a fight or some dramatic event. It arrived in a quiet, ordinary moment on a weekend afternoon, holding a newborn, and a dream reflected in the eyes of a woman who had loved too long and spoken too little. Elena remembered that day clearly, as if it had just happened. She had gone to visit her cousin, who had just given birth to her first child. The small apartment was filled with the scent of baby powder, soft lullabies, and the gentle cry of new life. When her cousin placed the tiny baby in her arms, Elena's heart cracked wide open. Everything felt so right, so beautiful, and yet so far from the life she currently had. She held the baby the entire afternoon, watching each tiny movement, feeling every fragile breath. In that moment, something awakened inside her, not just a want, but a deep, almost primal need to become a mother, to nurture, to build something that was hers. On the drive home, Daniel was at the wheel, glancing at his phone at a red light. Elena sat in silence, her mind still in that cozy apartment, with the baby, the warmth, the sense of belonging. "I want a baby," she said. Her voice was soft, but the words landed like thunder in the still air of the car. Daniel turned to her, frowning. "What, now?" "Not right now," Elena exhaled slowly. "But someday, I want a family, a home, a little garden, a big dining table where our children can laugh and grow." She hadn't realized when the tears began to fall. Every word felt like a release, a wound being opened. But it was the truth, finally spoken. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then let out a short laugh. "Elena, what are you even talking about? We're doing fine. Why mess with that?" "Because I want more than fine," she replied, her voice beginning to tremble. "I want a full life. I want someone to build it with. Haven't you ever wanted that too?" Daniel looked at her. His eyes were cold, unreadable. "No. I've never dreamed of those things. Honestly, I didn't think you needed them either." In that moment, everything shattered. 15 years together, and this was the first time they'd truly spoken about the future. But that future pointed in opposite directions. When the car stopped in front of her apartment, Elena didn't move. She looked at Daniel for a long time, as if memorizing him one last time. Then she leaned over and kissed him. A goodbye kiss. "Daniel, I think this is goodbye." He shrugged, clueless. "Okay, see you tomorrow." Elena shook her head, tears slipping freely. "No, there won't be a tomorrow anymore. Because I want a future. And you only live in the present." The months following the breakup were the hardest for Elena. During the day, she buried herself in work as if trying to outrun her feelings. But at night, when everything grew quiet, memories returned. Every hug, every date, every dream she had once imagined with Daniel. But like every storm, the sadness eventually passed. 6 months later, at an art fundraiser where Elena had been invited to oversee the space design, she met Julian Hart, a man entirely different from anyone she had ever known. He wasn't flashy or aloof. He was calm, warm, and quietly thoughtful. He didn't need to impress anyone. It was his genuine gaze and slightly shy smile that caught Elena's attention. Julian was a tech investor, a discreet billionaire known for supporting sustainable projects and the arts. Though he could easily command a room, he preferred to stand quietly at the edge, listening more than speaking. They started talking while admiring an abstract painting, first about art, then gradually about life, books, cooking, long, silent walks to clear the mind. Elena was surprised by the unexpected connection between them. No pressure, no expectations, just two people who had been broken before, learning how to trust again. Their first messages were polite thank yous. Then they slowly turned into questions. "How was your day? I found a quiet coffee spot. You'd love it." With each meeting, Elena felt safe, never judged, never needing to perform. Julian listened with his whole heart and always asked if she was truly okay and meant it. She would never forget the first time he held her hand. No rush, no force, just a gentle touch that quietly said, "I'm here." Julian wasn't the kind of man she had once dreamed of. He was the one her heart never knew it needed. Elena had never imagined she could fall in love again so gently. There were no fireworks, no dramatic movie-like moments, but something even more valuable: peace. Every meeting with Julian was like a small, quiet puzzle piece. Unassuming yet deeply meaningful. He never rushed, never pressured. When she needed space, he stepped back. When she needed someone close, he didn't wait to be asked. 3 months after their first meeting, Julian invited her to visit a villa he was renovating just outside the city, a place he called a home to build everything from the ground up. It was a simple, warm house with a spacious backyard and light pouring through every window. She didn't have to explain, didn't have to convince. Julian was already offering what she had longed for, straight from his own heart. Love doesn't need to be loud. Love is being present every day. It's listening, truly seeing each other. It's when someone doesn't try to change you, but wants to build the same dream together. Loving Julian didn't come like a tidal wave. It came like the season's first rain, gentle, slow, but deeply soaking. Elena couldn't point to the exact moment she started falling for him. Maybe it was when he waited quietly in the rain to walk her home. Maybe it was the way he texted her, "Sleep well," after long days, just because he knew she had trouble falling asleep. Or maybe it was how he looked at her, not just with his eyes, but with a gentle presence that wrapped around her. Julian never asked questions that made her feel pressured. Instead, he asked, "Are you feeling okay? What made you smile today?" Or simply, "What can I do to make you feel more comfortable?" 3 months after they met, Julian took her to a villa under renovation on the outskirts of the city. The house wasn't finished yet, but it was full of natural light, with a small garden in the back. "I'm restoring this place," Julian said, gently brushing his hand along the wooden doorway. "I want it to be a real home, and I need your help." Elena looked at him, surprised. "You mean?" "You have amazing taste. But not just that. I hope you'll feel like this is part of your place too." She didn't answer right away, but her heart quietly said yes. When they reached the dining area, Elena pointed to a small, elegant table, perfect for an intimate space for two. "This one looks nice." Julian smiled, then shook his head. "I have another idea." He led her to a large oak table, big enough to seat 8. "I want a big table because I dream of family dinners, filled with laughter and children's voices." Such a simple sentence, yet it stopped Elena in her tracks. She had once spoken these same dreams to someone else, only to be dismissed. But with Julian, she didn't even need to ask. He already understood. A few weeks later, Julian invited her to dinner with his family. His mother, a silver-haired woman who smiled with her eyes, greeted her warmly, and his father was quiet but kind. "Julian's never brought anyone home before," his mother whispered as they prepared dessert together. "But ever since you came into his life, his eyes light up." Elena felt welcomed, not as a guest, but as someone who belonged. She also met his friends, thoughtful, respectful people who greeted her with genuine warmth. It was nothing like the years she had spent in Daniel's tight social circle, where nothing ever grew or changed. This love wasn't just about emotion. It was a choice, a shared intention, two people building something together, with steady steps and matching hearts. The love between Elena and Julian had grown in such a natural way that neither of them could pinpoint when it happened, until one peaceful night under a star-filled sky made everything perfectly clear. It was a quiet weekend evening. They were having a simple dinner in the backyard of their new home. Paper lanterns hung on strings above them, casting a warm glow. The soft chirping of crickets mingled with gentle jazz playing from a small speaker. Elena felt like she was living in a quietly beautiful dream. After dinner, Julian stood up and walked over with an unusual stillness. He took her hand, looking directly into her eyes. No grand speeches, just truth. "Elena," he whispered, "will you help me turn this house into a home? With that big table, the laughter of children, and lots of love?" He knelt down and opened a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, just like their love. Elena couldn't hold back the tears, not from surprise, but because everything she had once dreamed of was right here, in this very moment. "Yes," she whispered through her smile and tears. "Of course I will." 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, the wedding took place in the garden of the seaside villa, where their story had quietly turned a corner. Every detail was simple, yet refined, just like them. Elena, in a graceful lace dress, stepped out from the same room where she once sat remembering the past. But this time, she wasn't looking back. She was walking toward the future, where someone was waiting with eyes full of love. As Elena stepped out from the room where she had prepared for the most important day of her life, her heart pounded, not from fear, but from deep emotion. Everything was ready. She was ready. Her eyes were fixed on the end of the aisle, where Julian stood waiting. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw movement. A familiar figure appeared at the entrance, tall, slightly hunched, walking slowly yet purposefully. She didn't need to look twice. No matter how many years had passed, even if his hair had changed, Elena recognized Daniel instantly. Her heart skipped a beat. The wedding coordinator hesitated. Guests began whispering. Elena gently signaled to close the doors. She needed to face this one last time. Daniel stood in front of her, hands in his pockets, eyes cast down as if searching for courage within himself. "I heard you're getting married, and I know I made mistakes," he began, voice trembling. "These past months without you made me realize what I lost." Elena didn't speak. She simply looked at him, the man who once meant everything to her, now standing here, looking like a lost boy. "I've changed," Daniel continued. "I want a family, a home, all the things you used to dream of. I want them too, now." They were the words she had longed to hear for years, but now, hearing them, she felt peace. "Daniel," she said softly, voice gentle but firm, "we had 15 years, and in all that time you never once asked me what I truly wanted. And when I finally told you, you rejected it like it was something foreign." He said nothing, regret written all over his face. "No, I've found someone who doesn't make me ask for permission to dream. He dreams with me. You're here because you're afraid of losing something you thought would always be there, not because you want to walk with me into the future." Daniel lowered his head, unable to respond. Elena took a step closer and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for coming, but I don't belong there anymore." She turned away, shoulders straight, heart unburdened. The doors to the ceremony opened once again, and Elena walked through, not to escape the past, but to embrace the future waiting for her. Elena walked steadily down the aisle, petals of white flowers beneath her feet. Her eyes found Julian at the altar, smiling softly, his gaze holding a promise without words. In that moment, Elena understood. Happiness doesn't come from a perfect past, but from bravely choosing the right person for the future. It's not about who came first, but who chooses to stay, who dares to build a life with you, step by step, dream by dream, heart to heart.